You are tuned in to the Big Ten Coaches Hot Seat Report here on Talking 10 TV. I'm your host, Andy Coppins, and each and every week we're going to break down the ins and outs of, well, who's in and out as Big Ten football coaches. Each and every week we're going to give you 4 stages of Big Ten coaches on their way out. We first start with one cheek on, those coaches who are starting to have some issues, those warming up who really need some help, and those on the hot seat, and those good as fired. And now, for your first ever Big Ten Coaches Hot Seat Report. We'll start at the bottom this week with those who have one cheek barely on the hot seat after 3 weeks into the season. First, it's Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, whose Hawkeyes are coming off a loss to the previously winless and rival Iowa State Cyclones. Losing the Cy-Hawk Trophy is no fun, but insult to injury is losing at home and collapsing to do it. Ferentz's icing incident will haunt him for some time. However, that's not the reason he has one cheek on per se. It has more to do with the fact that Iowa struggled in the 2 previous games, including a narrow win over FCS foe Northern Iowa in the opener. Ferentz's Hawkeyes look more like a bottom-feeding Big Ten team than a dark horse division winner. However, working in his favor is the still ridiculous buyout he has written into his contract. If Iowa doesn't turn things around quickly, the heat is likely to turn up on a coach who hasn't had double-digit wins in 5 years. At some point, the return on investment for Iowa's athletic department may be too low to keep him around, despite that crazy contract. For now, he's one coach to watch the rest of the season. Up next with one cheek on is Maryland Terrapins head coach Randy Edsall, who seemingly has had one cheek on, or one foot out the door, ever since he arrived in College Park, Maryland before the 2011 season. While the Terps are in year 1 as a member of the Big Ten, Edsall hasn't made the Terps into a consistent winner or a challenger to the upper echelon of whatever conference it has been a member of. Edsall has done well on the recruiting trail, but it has yet to produce a winning season in conference play. It will be interesting to see what the Terps brass want to do at the end of the season, especially given it is just year 1 of the Big Ten era for him. However, if things regress instead of progress, it may be time for the Terps to get someone new at the helm of their football program. While some coaches have an opportunity to remove themselves from hot seat consideration, others have their seats warming up. And chief among those in that category is Indiana Hoosiers head coach Kevin Wilson. His offenses have breathed life into this program, but his defenses have killed any chances of making a bowl game so far during his era. Also warming up is in-state rival Purdue's head coach Darrell Hazell. He's in year 2 of a massive reclamation project, and while it may seem too soon for him to be gone, this is a program that invested heavily in him as a head coach and needs results quickly. Fans are losing patience in West Lafayette, and losing bad to MAC opponents in non-conference play certainly doesn't help his situation. Chances are Hazell gets at least 1 more year, but if the Boilermakers can't find a way to win a single Big Ten game for the 2nd year in a row, it may be time to look in another direction. Now finally, in the warming up chairs, we have one of the more interesting cases with Northwestern's Pat Fitzgerald. His team won a bowl game just a few seasons ago, breaking a streak that dated back to 1949. All was right in Northwestern football land, except since that time, everything has gone wrong. The Wildcats suffered massive injury issues on the field in 2013, so we can throw that season out the window. However, Northwestern has started this season 0-2 with home losses to Cal and Northern Illinois. The offense has gone from dynamic to a major question mark quickly, and the defense, which should be Fitz's strong suit, has never been good under his direction. While Northwestern's situation is a bit unique, if it wants to be a true player going forward, it may need to see more progress than it has in the last few years under Fitz, and that means a change at the top. Alright folks, it's time for the 2 big categories here on the Hot Seat Report. We ask you, who sits directly on the hot seat and who is as good as gone? Who's sitting directly on the hot seat though? Why, of course, it's the one coach whose athletic director has insisted isn't on the hot seat all along, Brady Hoke of Michigan. The Wolverines have been very good at beating up on teams they should so far this season, but Hoke's Wolverines failed in a major way against the one big challenge it has faced, getting blanked by Notre Dame in Week 2. It was the first shutout against Michigan since 1984. That's right, folks. Michigan has not been shut out in over 3 decades, the longest stretch in college football history. That game also showcased that there were still many of the same issues facing the Wolverines as they had last season, mainly turnovers and inconsistent, at best, offensive line play. If those issues are still there in Big Ten play for his second year in a row, it isn't the offensive coaching staff's fault. I mean, they did change that this offseason, but rather it is a systemic problem in the culture of the program. That systemic problem means it's time for a change for one of the country's most historic programs. The good news is there are plenty of games available to prove us all wrong, but right now it's hard to see this team being anything but mediocre in the Big Ten. And finally, we've come to the point of no return for one head coach, that being our good as gone category. Sitting squarely on his way out after 3 weeks this season is Illinois' Tim Beckman, and like Kevin Wilson before him, it has little to do with the offensive side of the ball. Unlike Wilson though, Beckman has chosen to stay the course with his defensive coordinator, and not surprisingly, nothing has seemed to change for the Illini defense. It still gives up a ton of points, including a 44-point outburst to a Washington team that struggled to score points in the first 2 weeks of the season. If you can't count on the defense to stop anyone, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback looks, and Wes Lunt looks like the real deal. You simply can't win football games in the Big Ten. With just one Big Ten win to his credit in the first 2 years at Illinois, Beckman needs to find answers on the defense in order to get any wins in conference play this season. All the evidence so far points to a team incapable of improving enough to be in contender for the bowl game. And without that milestone, it's hard to see how Beckman keeps his job. This is Andy Coppins, publisher of Talking10.com, and this has been your Week 4 Hot Seat Report. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Talking_10. Like us on Facebook by finding Talking Big 10. And of course, make sure you head over to Talking10.com each and every week for the best in Big Ten coverage. Your only independent source for all things Big Ten football, basketball, hockey, baseball, and so much more.